we have been studying the Mizmorim that we say on Friday night, the Mizmorim of Leil Shabbos. And we have examined actually several of those Mizmorim. Of course, we began with L'chun v'anu L'Hashem, Nariya L'tzur Yishenu. And then we continued with the second Mizmor and the third Mizmor. So essentially, we've done Tzadik Hey, Tzadik Vav, Tzadik Zayin. And now this year, we will devote ourselves to studying Mizmor Tzadik Ches. As we've noted already in the past, the Mizmorim of Leil Shabbos are really very majestic and have in it a universal theme. And essentially, the primary theme of those Mizmorim, almost across the board, is the idea, the central idea of the Malchus of Hashem. We have already noted in our past Shiurim that essentially the idea of Malchus of Hashem, which of course comes to the fore and really is centrally accentuated on Rosh Hashanah, really has two elements. There are two basic strands, if you will. The first is the present reality, which is of course not the ideal, and that reality is that we, Klal Yisrael, recognize the Malchus of Hashem. We acknowledge and we basically openly and unabashedly indicate our commitment to the Malchus of Hashem Yisbarach. However, that's not sufficient. The second strand is also critical, and that strand, of course, is mechayev us to go hopefully be able to convince the entire world that Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlach the Olam Vayim. And that's basically the very essence, the very epicenter of what the Mizmorim of Leil Shabbos are all about. In the earlier Shurim we pointed out analogies, for example, between Mizmor Tzadik Hey, which is L'chun v'anu L'Hashem, Nariya L'tzur Yishenu, Nikama Fana Besoda, Bizmiros Nariya Lo, and the idea is Bo Nishtachave, let's prostrate ourselves to Hashem Yisbarach. Kikel Gadol Hashem, Melech Gadol HaKol Elohim. Hashem is the God par excellence, the Melech, the King, and we recognize it. Hu Elokeinu v'anachnu am marisa v'tzon yodo hayom imikolos ishmo, and we ourselves should not chas v'shalom deviate from our acknowledgement of Hashem Yisbarach as the Melech HaOlam, and that is Mizmor Tzadik Hey. We noted in Mizmor Kuf we have many parallels. There, a Mizmor that we had not yet studied formally, but we noted by way of analogy to Mizmor Tzadik Hey, in Kuf we have also a similar idea. Mizmor L'Soda, Hariyu L'Hashem Kol Haaretz. Again, we showed parallel language between the Kadma Fana B'Soda and Mizmor L'Soda. Nariyu L'Tzur Yishenu and Tzadik Hey with Hariyu L'Hashem Kol Haaretz in Kuf. Tzadik Hey has L'chun v'anu, Kuf has Bo L'Fana Birnana. Tzadik Hey has Bo Nishtachave L'fnei Hashem. Kuf has Bo L'Fanav. Tzadik Hey has Kikil Gadol Hashem, Melech Gadol HaKol Elohim. And Kuf has Ki Hashem Hu Elokim. Tzadik Hey has Hu Aso L'fnei Hashem Oseinu, and Kuf has Hu Asanu. And finally, Tzadik Hey has V'anachnu Am Marisa V'tzon Yodo, and Kuf has V'lo Anachnu Amo V'tzon Mariso. So we see there are many parallels between Tzadik Hey and Kuf. And in a similar vein, we also indicated the parallels that exist between Tzadik Zayin and Mizmor Tzadik Tes. And today we'll be discussing Mizmor Tzadik Ches. And in front of you, you have a sheet that will show you again parallels between Mizmor Tzadik Vav and Mizmor Tzadik Ches. But we'll see that Tzadik Ches is really, as in all the other cases that I just described, all the other parallels, there really is a kind of dialectic, and really what underlies that dialectic is exactly this Yesod. The Yesod being that it's not sufficient that we recognize the Malchus of Hashem, but we want the entire world to somehow be in on this little secret, if you will, and it should not be a secret, but rather it should become something which is universally acknowledged and something which is universally accepted and affirmed by the entire world that Hashem is the Melech al Kol Olam Kulam. So we're going to begin this year by examining Mizmor Tzadik Ches. You have it in the sheet in front of you, in the left-hand side. In the right-hand column, of course, you have Mizmor Tzadik Vav, and we'll show the parallels between these two Mizmorim, and we'll also examine some other elements that are obviously relevant to these two Mizmorim, but the focus, of course, of the Shir is on Mizmor Tzadiches. Mizmor Tzadiches begins, Mizmor Shir Hashem Shir Chadash. We want to sing to Hashem a Shir Chadash, and this, of course, is a theme that we've seen clearly in the other Mizmorim that we studied regarding Leil Shabbos, and we are in effect singing to Hashem Shir Chadash. The reason, Ki Niflo Sasa, because Hashem is responsible for many, many Niflos. Niflos, of course, refers to Dvarim Piliyim, things that are obviously Me'al Me'ever, L'Mala Miderech HaTeva, and the Niflos, of course, as you'll see in a moment, specifically that I mentioned, refer to Klal Yisrael. Hashem